Hello everyone, this is part 4 on how to make a tower defense game in Scratch. In this tutorial, I'll be adding a lot of improvements to the turrets, including a firing animation, customizable range, adding a base, and making the turret unable to be placed on the track or on other turrets. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 3, check them out, links are in the description below. Anyways, let's get started. So first off, I want to add a firing animation to the turret, because right now, all the turret does is point and shoot at the enemy. However, I want it to switch to a firing costume. So I'm going to go to the turret sprite, and then I'm going to go into costumes, and I'm going to duplicate this costume, and over here, I am going to draw some type of firing thing to show that the turret shot at the enemy. So something like this. Okay, I am going to make the outline orange, maybe a dark orange. Alright. And for the fill, I am going to have a sort of yellower orange. So something like this. Okay, and for the outline size, I think a size of 7 is fine. And I will select this and click the back button right here. So it's going to go under the turret. And that should be fine. So I'm going to make a few final adjustments. And alright, cool. So now we have the turret firing costume. And I'm going to go back to the code. And inside of the code, I am going to go to the part where the turret shoots the bullet. So over here, and then I'm going to go to looks and drag a switch costume to costume 2. So this is the turret firing costume. So right when the turret fires, I'm going to make it switch costume to costume 2, and then I'm going to make a wait something like, let's say 0.05 seconds, and then I'm going to make it switch costume back to its original costume, which was costume 1. Alright, and if we try it out, then if we place down a turret, then when it shoots, as you can see, it does that quick firing animation like so. And yeah, I think that looks a bit better. And now the next thing I want to do is improve the turret range. So right now, I only have one size for the turret range. However, I want to make it so that if I change this view radius variable right here, then the size of my turret range will also change. So for example, my view radius of 100 works right now for this view radius, as you can see. However, if I change this to something like 50, then I want the size of the view radius to also decrease to 50. So to do that, it's actually not too complicated. So first I'm going to set this back to 100. And what we have to do is to drag a set size to block. And I'm going to put this over here. So inside of the forever loop. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to drag a divided by operator and also a multiplication operator. And then I'm going to put this divided by operator on the left side of the multiplication operator. And then I'm going to go to variables and drag the view radius variable onto the left side of the divided by operator. And then I'm going to drag this all inside of the set size to block. So now to make the turret range sprite increase or decrease size based on the view radius variable, we have to put whatever value of the view radius that works inside of here, and then the current size of the turret range inside of here. So in my case, a turret range of size 100 with a view radius of 100 works for me, but it depends on how big you make your view radius image in your costume. So for mine, I'm going to put in 100 in this part right here. And this is the view radius variable. And then in this part, I'm going to also put in 100 because that's the size of my turret range. So now if I drag this inside of the forever loop, then the turret range should work as normal. So the turret should shoot in here. As you can see, it does. However, if I change the view radius to something like 50, then the size should also change accordingly, like this. And I've put this in here. As you can see, the turret only shoots in range of this view radius right here. And if I try something like 150, then the turret range should be much larger, and the turret should only shoot inside of here. And cool. So that works. And then if I try something again, like 70, then it should also update and work. Like so. Alright, cool. So again, this number right here, you put in whatever your original view radius was. So in my case, it was 100. And then in this number, you put in whatever size your turret range was that worked with your view radius of this number. So in my case, that was 100 also. So now it should work as normal. Alright, cool. So now that we're done with our customizable turret range, I want to now add a base to the turret. So something like this, where it's like a square at the bottom of the turret, like so. So I sort of want to add some base like this. However, I can't do that, and the reason is that when I place down a turret, then the base also rotates with the turret, like this. So I want to add a base to the turret that does not rotate. And in this case, we have to create a new sprite. So over here, paint a new sprite. And then for the base, I am going to create sort of like a rounded rectangle. So I'm going to first shift, hold, click, and then drag a rectangle and center this. And then to make it rounded, I am going to click this button right here. And then I'm going to create 2 more points. Let's say one over here and one over here. And then I'm going to click the middle one, or the edge point, and then I'm going to delete it. And there we go. We have a rounded edge. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other 3 sides. Something like this. Alright. And I think this is a pretty good base for my turret. So now I'm going to click this and then increase the outline size a bit to, I think 8 is fine. Yep. So a size of 8. And then I'm going to copy this and paste this back into the turret costume to see how this looks. Okay, I think it's a bit large, so I'm going to go back to my base sprite and then decrease the size a bit. Alright. And then I'm going to copy it, go to my turret sprite, and then paste it to see how it looks. Okay, I think maybe still a bit too large, so I'm going to make it smaller. Alright. And then also for my turret sprite, I am going to make this part a bit longer. So something like this. Alright. And then I'm going to select all of this, Control C, or copy it, and then go to my firing costume, and then delete these 2 and paste. Alright. And I am going to drag this forward a bit. So over here, and that should be fine. Alright, so now I have my base image for my turret, and I'm just going to name this base. Okay, and then inside of the code, I am going to first go to my turret. So inside of my turret sprite, when I place down the turret, or actually when I click this turret over here, then I want to create a clone of the base, which follows the turret. So I'm going to go to Control, and then drag a create clone of myself. And then I'm going to change this to the base. And now inside of the base sprite, I am going to go to Events, grab a when flag clicked, and then I am going to actually first show the original base sprite because I want this sprite to be shown over here. So I'm going to show it and then make it go to somewhere around here. So that's like x212 and y159. Alright, and then I'm going to make the base the same size as the turret. So the turret size is 65%. So inside of the base, I am going to set size to 65%. Alright, and now I'm also going to make the base go to the back. So inside of looks, let's drag a go to front layer and change this to go to back. Alright, and now the base is under the turret. And I'm going to change the Y position a bit to maybe like 164, 162. Okay, so now as you can see in the shop area, the base is exactly under the turret. And now I think the turret looks nicer now that we have a base. However, the base does not follow the mouse pointer when we drag the turret. So since the turret sprite created the clone of the base when we click on the turret, then inside of the base, we need to grab a when I receive clone, or when I start as a clone, then let's grab a set size to block first of all, and then let's see the turret size when it's selected. So that's 75%. So let's set the base size to also 75%. And then let's see, we also need to create a new variable, and we have to make the same variable we have for the turret sprite, which is the mouse action variable. And then we have to select for this sprite only, and then click OK. All right, and then right under here, let's set mouse action to selected, since when the turret creates the clone, once we click the turret, that means we're selecting the turret and the base as well. And then let's go to control, grab a forever loop, and then I'm going to forever check if the mouse action is equal to selected. So if we're currently selecting the turret and the base, then I'm going to make the base go to the mouse pointer. So grab a go to, and then change this to mouse pointer. Alright, cool. So let's try it out. Once we click this turret, then as you can see, the base also follows the mouse pointer. However, if we place down the turret, then the base still follows the mouse pointer. So let's fix that. So we have to go inside of the turret, and then inside of here, let's go to events and drag a broadcast message 1. And then I'm going to change this to something like broadcast, let's call it place turret. All right. And then let's drag this under the wait until not mouse down. So once we click again, then we are going to place the turret. And then inside of the base sprite, we are going to receive the place turret message. So essentially the turret is telling the base that we have placed the turret. And then in this case, we want to set the mouse action to none. All right, cool. And since the mouse action is none, then the base won't follow the mouse pointer anymore. And now if we try it, once we click, it follows. However, if we click again, then the base stops moving along with the turret. All right, cool. And now as you can see, the base does not rotate. However, only the turret head does. So let's try it again. As you can see, the base does not rotate and only the turret does. And cool. I think that looks a lot better. I think it looks like an actual turret now. But I think I'm going to make the sizes of the turrets a bit smaller. So I might change this to maybe 50% and 40% for these two values. And then inside of the turret, I'm also going to change these. So 40% and 50%. And if we try it again, then the turret is smaller, and if we place it, all right, cool. I think this is a more appropriate size, and yeah. All right, cool. So now that we have the base down, one more problem is that we can place this turret anywhere on the map, and also we can stack these turrets. So we have to fix these problems. I am going to duplicate the base sprite to create a turret collider sprite. And this sprite is going to essentially check whether it's touching the track or the other turrets. So I'm going to call this something like turret collider. All right. And then inside of the costumes, I am going to select the rectangle tool and then draw a rectangle over the base. And I think I'm going to make it a bit smaller than the base. So something like this. All right. And then I'm going to take out the outline, so outline 0. And then for the color, I think I'm going to make it a super obvious color, so maybe a red. All right, and then I'm going to delete the base. Okay, so now inside of the code, for the turret collider, let's see. So under the when flag clicked, I'm going to first go to looks, and then set the ghost effect to 100. So we want the turret collider to be invisible. And I'm also going to actually hide the turret collider. So I'm going to hide this. And in this case, we don't actually need the set ghost effect. And we also want the turret collider to follow the mouse pointer when we touch the turret, because we want it to detect whether it's touching a track or another turret. So in this case, let's actually go to the turret. And then when we click on the turret, we want to also create clone of the turret collider. Okay, and then inside of the turret collider sprite, once the user is dragging the turret, we want the collider to actually show. So let's drag a show under the when I start as a clone. And then let's see, let's keep all of this mouse action stuff. And I'm also going to drag a go to front layer block and put this inside of the forever loop because I want the collider to show on top of everything. And then inside of this mouse action equals selected part, I'm going to check. Let's grab an if else. If the turret collider is touching the track, so if touching, and oh yeah, we actually can't detect if it's touching the track sprite because the track is part of the backdrop. So inside of the stage, let's actually select this track. So I'm going to actually do Control X or cut. And then I'm going to create a new sprite. And inside of the costumes, I'm going to paste. So now we have our track sprite by itself. And I'm also going to quickly drag a go to XY block and set it to 0, 0. All right, so now we have our track. And I'm also going to make it go to the back layer so everything goes in front of it. Let's go to back. And now we should be fine. We have our track sprite as normal. Okay. And now inside of our turret collider sprite, we can detect if touching the track. So I'm going to name this track. Okay. Then I'm going to make the collider slightly visible. So I'm going to drag a set and then change this to ghost to something like 20. So make it sort of transparent. Else, if it's not touching the track, that means we're okay. So I'm going to set the ghost to 100. So that makes it invisible. And now if we try it out, then if we click on the turret and go over the track, then as you can see, the collider turns red. However, once we leave it, then it hides. All right, cool. However, one thing is that we can still place the turret. So to avoid that, let's go to variables, and then I'm going to create a new variable and call this something like can place tower. Okay, and then I'm going to select for this sprite only. All right, and then I'm going to check if it's touching the track. Then of course we don't want to place the tower, so let's set can place tower to no. Else we can place the tower, so I'm going to set it to yes. However, the code that is used to place the turret is inside of the turret sprite. So we want to move it inside of the turret collider sprite. So inside of the turret sprite, let's find the part where we place the turret. So it's over here. So let's drag this entire block and then move it inside of our turret collider. So like this. All right, so now we have the turret placing code inside of the turret collider. And now inside of the turret, we can take this part out, and back inside of the collider, let's also add an if statement and check if can place tower is equal to yes. So pretty much since we set can place tower to no if the collider is touching the track, that means that we can only place down the turret once the collider is not touching the track. So once we place down the turret, we want to, of course, set the mouse action to none. And also, we can take out the set can show radius circle to no, because that's part of the turret, which we will change later. But let's also set the can place tower to no. And now, since we took this block out of the turret sprite, the turret still needs to set the mouse action and the can show radius circle variables. So inside of the turret sprite, let's go to events and drag a when I receive place turret. That means the turret is placed down. then we want to set can show radius circle to no, and also set the mouse action to none. Alright, cool, and everything should work. So if we try it out, then if we try placing it down on the track, then we cannot. However, if we place it normally, then we can. Alright, cool. So that works. However, the next thing we have to do is to make it so that it cannot be placed on top of other turrets. So let's do that. So let's see. So I am going to right click and duplicate my base sprite. And then I am going to name this, let's call this placed turret collider. So as the name suggests, this collider is only going to show when the turret is placed. So I'm going to go inside of the costumes, and for the placed turret collider, it's going to be the exact same size as my normal turret collider. So I'm going to select this and then Control C. And then inside of the placed turret collider, I'm going to delete this one and then Control V. Alright. And then for the color, just to know which one's which, I'm going to make this a different color. So I might make this a, let's say, purple. Alright. And now, inside of the code, I am going to hide the placed turret collider. So hide when the flag is clicked. And everything else should be okay. Alright, so I actually don't need the go to X or set size or go to back layer. So I'm going to take these out. And then inside of the when it starts a clone, I'm going to grab also a hide just in case. And I'm going to set mouse action to selected, okay, and also all of this. And I'm also going to drag a go to front layer inside of the forever loop just to make sure that this collider goes on top of everything else. And under the when I receive place turret, which means that the turret is placed, then I want to show the placed turret collider. And also set the mouse action to none, which we already have here. And now one last thing I want to do is that inside of the normal turret collider, after it places the turret, I want to delete its clone. So delete it. Alright. Now finally in the turret collider, we also want to detect if it's touching the track or touching the placed turret collider. Then of course we cannot place down the turret. So let's drag the placed turret collider in the OR and drag this back. And oh yeah, one last thing I forgot to do is that inside of the turret sprite, I have to also create a clone of the placed turret collider. So I'm going to go to Control and then create clone of placed turret collider. And now let's try it out. So if we place the turret, alright, here is the collider. And now, as you can see, we cannot place the turrets on top of each other. So it works. Alright, cool. So now, of course, I want to hide the colliders once they're placed. So inside of the placed turret collider sprite, I'm going to go to looks and then drag a set ghost effect to 100 when the flag is clicked. Alright, so let's try it again. Now the placed turret colliders do not show. However, you cannot place turrets on top of each other or on the map. Alright, cool. So everything seems to work. And yeah, now we have better turret placement. And one last thing I want to do is that I want to create a layering system because, for example, sometimes for some reason the base might actually be on top of the turret or something like that, like this for example. So I just want to make sure that everything is ordered correctly, and to do that I am going to go through all of the sprites and set the correct layer. So first off, in the turret, I am going to grab another when it starts a clone and a forever loop, and then I'm going to forever make it go to the front layer, and I'm going to make it go backwards 1 layer. Okay, and then of course we want the base directly under this turret. So inside of the base, in the forever loop, I am going to make it go to front layer and then make it go backwards, something like 5 layers. Okay, just to make sure that the base is behind the actual turret. And then for the turret range, we want to make sure that it's behind the turret and the turret base. So in the range, I am going to make it go to front layer and make it go backwards, let's say like 10 layers. All right, just to make sure. And then for the turret and place turret sprites, let's make them go to front layer. All right, we have go to front layer. And for this one, also go to front layer. Okay, and lastly, for the enemy sprite, we actually always want them to appear under the turret range. So inside of the enemy, inside of the forever loop, I am going to grab a go to back layer because we wanted to make sure that it goes under everything else. And then I'm going to drag a go forward 1 layer, and that's because we want to make sure that the enemy is of course above the track. And for the track, I'm going to drag a when 5 clicked and forever loop, then always go to back layer, so the track is always on the bottom. And now everything should be layered correctly. Alright, cool. And now I'm going to hide these variables, so I'm going to hide the base variable and also the turret collider variable. Alright, cool. Anyways, that's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe too, if you haven't already. In the next video, I'll make it so that you can view a specific turret's range, and I'll also start creating new enemies and a wave system. By the way, this project is shared on my Scratch file, link is in the description below. Anyways, that's it for this tutorial. See ya!